Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's Thursday. This is Skywire, and we are talking about listening and writing and how are they connected. And I want to welcome all of you here today. And I want to introduce who is in that green room because without these ladies in the green room, I don't know, there wouldn't be a green room and there wouldn't be a Maryland. So let me tell you who's in there. First, we have Tracy Baker. Hello, Tracy.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, everybody.
And then we have I'm pronouncing this funny because I've had oral surgery and my teeth don't work, but Katrina Bancook is in the room. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
And Sheila Hensley is here. Sheila, welcome.
Thank you, Marilyn. Hello, how are you this morning?
Terrific. And this is your first time in the green room with us, isn't it?
It's not my first time to be in the film strip, but it's the first time to be in the green room, prepare, and be invited by somebody like you, and it is a pleasure and joy. Thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure, and thank you for being here. And I hope I pronounced this correctly, Kalyani Ralden has just joined us. Welcome. Good to have you.
Yes, good morning, Marilyn.
Good morning. I'm glad you figured out how to do it.
Thank you for inviting me on. It happens to be one of the hottest days going on right now over here in Puerto Rico, so I am melting without air conditioning. So if I look a little beaded, it's because I'm sweating over here.
Well, we're glad to have you, and hopefully we're going to say such inspiring things that'll give you the chills.
Good.
So, writing. So this is really an interesting and exciting topic. And before we get started, I want each of the ladies in our green room to share just a second of who they are and what they do. So let's start with Tracy. Tracy, tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hi, everybody. I am Tracy Baker. I have a community here on the Plus called Healthy You, where we explore mind, body, spirit, planet, gratitude, and healthy listening is a new category in my community. I wonder how that happened, Marilyn Shannon. But I also am, to pay for all my passions, I am with Miriam International as a company.
Wonderful. Katrina, what about you?
I am a professional writer. I'm a creativity consultant, and I really love helping people sort of get to that really core message within them so that they can share it in their marketing. And also in their life, they have a lot of things they want to express and they're not quite sure how to do that, so I can help them through that.
Great. Well, we're going to be relying on you a lot today. And what about you, Sheila? What do you do?
I have a long real estate background, owning my own company, and everybody thinks I'm a real estate agent. But about a decade ago, I morphed into education. So now I own a real estate school, which has also morphed into bringing real estate agents into social media. So I have studied social media for probably the last 10 or 12 months, trying to decide how it would go into that industry and what we all needed to know. And as you know, it changes so fast that's I pretty much run all the time trying to keep up. But I have also written articles about my industry that have been published pretty widely. So I have some experience with writing. But I always had an editor, so I could write whatever I wanted, and the editor would fix it. So this is going to be an interesting show for me. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure, and even if you have an editor, and a lot of people do, you still have to be able to put your thoughts, your emotion, your feelings out on paper for them to capture it. So you don't get away from it just because you have an editor.
That's right.
You still have to be able to be yourself. That's perfect. Kalyani, what do you do?
Well, I've actually been an entrepreneur for, well over 18, 20 years now in various different things. My husband and I had an agency in California that did alternatives to domestic violence and positive parenting. And then we took a wild adventure from that and went off to live in Florida and had a really successful real estate business. And then at one point decided we had finished that journey of our life, and most recently in the last few years I came online as a blogger, and that morphed into what is my passion, and now I'm passionate about helping other moms discover their passion and actually claim, ignite, and thrive their life. Not just discover their passion, but claim it, ignite it, and really thrive in their life and their business, and do it online.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you all very much. And for me, I'm a life business coach, online TV hostess, facilitator, and speaker, and I'm going to go right into this quote. So don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Howard Thurman. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how you come alive, how you express yourself, because the world needs what you have to say. And each and every one of us in the green room, and each and every one of you listening and that will be listening, the world needs what you have to say. Each and every one of us are an expert in something. And the more we each say it, and the more we each share it, the better the world's going to be. So, Katrina, you are a writer and someone who teaches and helps other people open up to this. So how would you say we can really access our personal selves in order to express ourselves through listening? What do you think?
I think the number one most important thing, and a lot of times this can be the hardest thing for people, is that they just have to sit still once in a while. Because when your mind keeps going and you're not actually taking a little bit of time to sort of sit and get clear about what you're thinking and feeling all together, that can really get in the way of you being able to access that information that wants to come out. Because if you think about it, if your mind's always racing, you're thinking about all the errands or the other details and things that you need to do that gets mixed in with some maybe random creative inspirations. Like, for example, I went to bed the other night and I thought of an idea for a blog post right before I fell asleep. I could have just went to sleep, but luckily my phone was right there, so I just opened up Google Keep and put a note in there. And, aside from tracking ideas when you find them, I really do feel that the most important thing is for people to find a little bit of time in their day, every day, to kind of just sit and relax and get into that pattern. Because the more you do that, the more you're telling your body and your mind there's a space for new ideas to come up.
That's a very interesting point, is to tell yourself that there is a space, that you own a space to allow yourself to be creative. And once you do, you kind of open up that floodgate. That's a very good point. Thank you for sharing that. Anything else, Katrina, before we go on?
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
Do you have I know when I go to sit down to my quiet space, and I do it every morning and every night, I have a list of affirmations, a list of questions, especially going to sleep, to sort of direct what my hopefully dreams will happen. When you sit in your quiet space and check in for your creativity, do you have a mantra or a set to ignite that creative space? I mean, do you?
Well, it depends on the situation. I think for some days when I've got a little bit more going on than others, there will be a mantra that kind of just comes to me, and I don't have a set one, but I'll sort of work with that. Otherwise, I just sort of sit and be quiet and ask, well, what do I need to know? What is it that I need to be sharing that I'm not sharing? Or what is it that I need to be aware of that I don't know, or my mind's in the way of knowing? So I sort of phrase it in that way so that I'm open. Because a lot about creativity is flow. I think it's great to have those affirmations because then you're sort of channeling that a little bit more and you know what your focus is. But a lot of times I like to keep mine very open because I'm writing about, my blog, I'm blogging regularly about creative topics that are really relevant to anyone that's blocked with creativity. So I try to keep my space a little bit more open from a teacher perspective. But I think that affirmations are extremely helpful, especially if you're struggling with writing about a specific topic. Because if you think about, if you're really passionate about something and want to write about it, but aren't sure how, if you use an affirmation to really focus that energy, I think that it can very much open up a space for you to find the right words to do that.
I think that's important because I can feel what I want to write sometimes, but then I can't find the actual word that expresses the feeling, or maybe it's a combination of words that I feel it, but I don't know how to always put that feeling into a combination of words, and I find myself looking at thesaurus a lot of the time to be able to get just that right word that will mean what I want to say. And I see some smiles here, like Sheila's smiling.
Yes, Tracy, you're overthinking it, my precious.
I don't hear that very often.
Does that make well? But it's almost an avoidance. I can't do what you described because if I do, it will shut me down. If I relax, and I do it, I don't do it on a set schedule because my body does not work on a set schedule. But when I get an idea, I listen to it because it's like cold water in the face. I can't help but listen to it. It's the way I am made up. And once I hear it, I go, oh, okay. And then I let it develop on its own. And if I try to help it develop, it's not going to develop. Now, I think that's my personality. I've always lived with it, and I thought I was the only one. But if I try to make it happen, it's not going to happen. If I am quiet and listen, it will just happen. And Marilyn, the right words will come. If I just write down the words I'm thinking, they're going to be the perfect words. Don't overanalyze them. Send them to Katrina and let her look at them. Just as a second eye, so you will know that you have used the right words, or this word might make a little more sense. But just let it happen is the way I would do it. I could be wrong. I'm not wrong. It's the way it works for me.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you, Sheila. I want to chime in on that because a couple of things that came up for me is that I've never considered myself a writer.
Right.
And I think that when sometimes when women or people start to say, well, they've read other quote-unquote writers, and then there becomes this aura that says, oh, that means you write in a certain way.
Correct.
Marilyn, I love the thesaurus. I use it almost every day because I have a vocabulary that I use all the time, but I'm big and excited about expanding that. So I grab, well, I don't grab it anymore because now everything's online. I get online and every word that comes to me, I go and look up another word for it and see how can I expand, how will it fit in. And the other thing that, like I'm saying, I agree with Sheila, is for me, I cannot create a creative writing space.
Right.
I have my phone with me all the time because literally, even when I'm in the shower, great things come, and I will stop the shower and I will dictate into my phone. And something that I have noticed is I speak way different than I write. When I sit and write, I get into a different part of me that I really never knew was there. And so what happens is that sometimes I will just dictate what's coming up rather than sit and write it, because immediately when I start typing, I start switching to that different mode that says, oh, the writer's kicking in, and I will start writing it differently instead of just letting flow.
Well, there definitely is a difference between the writing and getting out a rough draft and then polish.
Yeah.
There's.
She's going in and out. Oh, sorry. We've missed an important word. I know we have.
Kayleani, you were just finishing up. Say what you just said, so because we missed that part.
Oh, I was saying at the end that for me, a lot of times it's just that I go ahead and dictate to the phone what the flow is coming, because then it's coming what was really inspired, and I'm not trying to then alter it to that writing language. And I let, the dictation program show me what it is that I shared.
Right. Yeah, well, I do write the way I speak because I'm a little street, so my writing resembles how I speak normally, and everybody has a different style. I think the other important thing to talk about is how you feel free enough. How do you get yourself free enough to express yourself, to be comfortable writing who you are, whether it's the story of your life, a memoir, a post? How do you feel comfortable enough sharing who you are in your writing? Can anybody share anything about what you do or anything about that?
Well, I'm going to say that as probably one of the newer writers on here, or quote-unquote writer, I think whether it's writing or anything that you want to share in general that you feel inspired to, which is really the calling for everybody. We're all called here to share some sort of message. And it's an ongoing process. For 20 years, I've been reading, writing, exploring, getting more confident in myself, meditating. I mean, you pull any, crazy wacko kind of idea and spiritual technology you can out of the realm, and I've probably tried it, because it's really getting comfortable with yourself. Otherwise, you're going to analyze everything you write and think, is this going to be what people want? Are they going to like it? What are they going to think of me? And then you're not sharing what you're called to share. So it's an ongoing journey. I'm still in it every day. I do meditation every morning. I read. I do affirmations, all of it.
And I can chime in and say, I have no choice. I don't even think about it. I absolutely have no choice. It just happens. And I write, I have been told, I write like I speak. And Marilyn, that is supposed to be very, very advantageous to the reader. That if they think you are just having a conversation with them, then they relate to it more. Now, can I get down into technical writing and course construction and all of that and edit it? Absolutely, because that is a completely different person, a different thing and person. But if I'm writing to express myself, just talking is what I need to do.
There's a good comment from Kelly. Let me put it up. From Kelly Harrell that says it's a very different synopsis in speaking and writing for me also. So I think that's a very prolific topic, and I'm not a writer. I'm a stage 4 dyslexic. Getting things from my head through my hand into paper, which is why Katrina helped me with my profile and everything else, is because it doesn't flow. And I'm playing with the idea of getting, Dragonfire or one of those talking apps that will type for me, so that I can be my creative voice and have it be put on paper without, because I think for me, when I start to have a creative idea and I go to sit down and write it, I freeze up because I'm so intimidated by knowing that I'm not very good at it. So it's a really interesting way to be listened to and be heard and have your message flow. There's so many tools out there for us now.
I was going to suggest that same program. I do think that people that are better on video, it's a great, it says Dragonfire, that's an amazing tool for folks. It saves you time from sitting at the computer, because you can kind of just be there and, kind of be doing other stuff while you're talking, and you're more in a creative zone that's comfortable to you rather than feeling like you're sitting and you're stiff. I've been a professional writer for over 14 years, so I had to transition from handwriting everything to actually getting comfortable with sitting at a computer. I'm like, okay, this is a little different now to actually sit at a computer and get my thoughts to come through in a fluid way. I definitely think that there's still a lot of power in journaling. There's still a lot of power in, maybe you want to draw some pictures. Maybe you want to freehand just throw some notes and do a vision board. I know Tracy does a lot of those. So there's a lot of ways to listen to what you want to write about later. I think anytime you're focusing on the mechanics first, they do get in the way. I don't do that either. I mean, I do a little bit of editing as I write, but for the most part, I'm just getting down my ideas and getting through a blog post and sort of figuring out, okay, this is how I want to shape things, or now the idea's changed. I also suggest that if you're going to publish something or put something out there, definitely leave a little time to write it, then edit it, then kind of do a fresh view set of eyes in the morning or maybe a couple hours later, because that can really go a long way in helping you feel like you've really captured the message that you want to put out there to everyone else. Because let's face it, there's a big difference between writing for you and getting ideas down versus writing something that you're going to share with the world, right? Those are two different things. So you have to know your goal. What is your purpose in the end of why you're writing? Are you writing just for you to get your ideas down and then you can play with them and make them into something, or is this something other people are actually going to read and see? So there's that piece of it as well.
That's good, and you want to use your listening as a bridge to be able to connect those pieces, whether it's just for you, whether it's for somebody else, and you want to listen. And I was having a thought, editing or not editing as you write. I think it's kind of like you have to listen twice or three times, multiple times. You listen first beyond the editing. You listen, I have to edit it, but I got to go on to this. I just want to get the thoughts out, the creative ideas out, the concepts out, and then go from there without being critical of, how you're writing. Just getting past that, just getting to the juice of what you want to write is so important for what you want to express. So, Tracy, you and I chatted about, and we've been chatting here about doing it on a video, which makes perfect sense. Or if somebody's going to have it edited, just write it. Just write it and give it to somebody later and let them edit it. It doesn't matter.
Well, and then there are, there are situations where, someone gets to a point where they really just need a fresh set of eyes on their content. And a lot of what I do, I'm working with someone right now that she's a kids entertainer. And she does face painting, and she does kids parties, and she does all this really fun creative stuff with kids. But she's like, look, I can get you some ideas, but I need you to just polish them up. So you can always kind of get to that point where you are handing it off to someone else that can do the final polish, and then you can get to focus on what you really like to do. And that's why, again, it's really what is your bigger purpose with writing? And if it's going to go out to other people and try to market your business or any other number of goals that you have, then that's a little bit different in terms of how you're going to approach what you write. I'm assuming that when you're journaling, hopefully you're just writing down your thoughts and not editing as you go. If any of you guys journal.
Yeah,
so,
and with somebody, going to somebody like you, Katrina, or anybody else for that matter, but specifically you, you're going to be listening to who they are. You're going to be listening to help them in their words, not in your words.
Absolutely.
So the sentiment there. So any of us that support each other, maybe we do that. Maybe now we've created this circle and everybody that's listening the same thing, and we feel comfortable sharing each other's work and helping each other, fine tune, get over certain things, but in the sound of how we want to express ourselves. Because I think that's important.
Right, and you also have to take other people's insight with a grain of salt too, right? So they may have some input on what you're writing, but if it doesn't feel authentic to you, I'm just going to throw that word out there. I know that's a hot word sometimes, but if it really doesn't truly feel like something that you would say or how you would talk, you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're taking in other people's commentary too. So don't get caught up in what everyone else is thinking. You have to sort of blend the input with the message and how it physically feels to you when you read it.
Yeah, that makes really good sense.
Yeah, Katrina, I'm really glad that you mentioned about the editing while you're writing, because you're a professional. But if I start editing while I am writing, and I also want to ask you about the transition from writing on paper, which was a touch-feel sensation, and we owned it. It was ours. And then when we went to the keyboard, I found myself editing more on the keyboard, and I had to train myself to stop editing while I was trying to get thoughts down. Forget about the misspelled words, forget about the commas, forget about it making sense. Just get the thoughts down. You can always go back or have someone else look at it, but you can always go back and reread it. And sometimes the editing part is a very creative version of it, because you say, oh, I didn't mean to say that. This is what I meant to say. So, but if I try to edit while I'm writing, it just crushes my creative process. Is that normal, or do you think that's valid, or should I change?
Oh no, that's absolutely normal, and I think you seem to know yourself very well. And I do think that when you're on the computer, unless you're shutting out all other social media, you're getting distracted too. Right. So how many of us really just have nothing else open but maybe a Google document or Word and just write? And that can make a big difference. I'm moving this week, so I wrote my blog post for Monday at my other house, and I was offline. and I couldn't remember the last time I actually went through and wrote something where I wasn't actually, you know, interacting with other emails or other things that were going on, and I forgot how powerful that is to just block out everything else and focus on what you want to put together. And, you know, writing in chunks like that can make it easier. I don't know, obviously you guys are all writing different things, but, you know, for me, I know the flow of how I want a blog post to be at this point, so I know how long it may or may not take me to do that. When I'm working on client stuff, that's a little bit different because I am using more of my intuitive side to work with those folks. I am creating a collaboration between, you know, my skills and their voice. So there's just another layer of listening that's happening there. Whereas when I'm just with me, I can be like, okay, that doesn't sound like me, I can tweak that. So, you know, even if you're writing for bigger projects, I definitely suggest taking chunks and saying, okay, I'm going to do this for an hour. You know, I'm going to do this for maybe a couple hours, then, you know, leave it to edit. But it's really the space that you're creating in between when you write and when you publish that's the most important, and making sure you pace yourself, because you can get really sort of stressed out when you wait too long and then you're like, oh, this doesn't sound right, and then you start getting over-analyzing, you pick at the words, you dig up the thesaurus, and you're like, well, it's good enough, maybe, but wait, let me check one more time. And then you're stressing out before you put something out in the world. And do you want that energy all jammed into your writing so that when people are reading it, that's what they feel? Or do you want it to really flow and feel like, yes, this is something that's fresh and it's clear and it's confident and this is my feeling and this is my voice. So you kind of have to think about, I kind of think about it as energy in that way. It's, if you're kind of crowded and stressed and all that stuff when you're putting it together, that can sometimes be the vibe that comes across when someone's reading it.
I agree with everything you've said, which is really scary for me. I usually have an opposite opinion, so somebody else take it. I'm agreeing with her too much.
Well, we did have a couple of comments, Marilyn, if you want me to pop them up.
Go for it.
Kelly Harrell, still listening, says, I compose on the keyboard and edit longhand. Again, very different synapses filling with both part of the brain. And Susan says, she said, I write the way I think, unedited. If I wrote the way I talk, there would be a lot of ums and ahas in there.
That's so true.
That's great.
Those are great comments. Thank you.
Those are really great. Those are really great. There's so much to talk about. Because, I mean, when you talk about, well, what is it that really, what are we listening to in our fears about writing? Mm-hmm. Is it just the grammar? Is it just, what are we listening to that that becomes a roadblock to actually writing? I mean, what is that? It's
perfection. We all want it to be perfect.
Who said that?
She's going to write it down.
I find that, I'm just going to use myself as an example because, what better way to do this? I feel extra pressure as a writer that, say I put something up on social media and there's a spelling mistake in it, that everyone will judge me because I'm a writer and made a spelling mistake. And probably no one ever thinks that I would feel that way, or maybe you do, I don't know. But there is that certain level of expectation that you have that in your given field and profession that you have to be perfect at whatever you're doing. But at the end of the day, I'm still a person and I'm still human and I have distractions and I may make a mistake. So I think with writing, you have to just let it simmer and work with it and realize that it's a perfection process. It's not perfection the first time it plops out onto your computer or whatever else.
Oh, thank you for
not getting my message across. That's my fear in my writing. If what I'm trying to say is not going to be heard because of the lack of being able to say it clearly, that's my biggest fear.
Well, and I can understand that.
I can't believe that perfectionism is Tracy's fear. Can anyone else? Yes, Tracy, that's exactly what it is. Stop trying to be perfect and just let it flow.
Just be you.
That's right.
Katrina, I want to chime in on what you said about making the writing, the grammar mistakes, because I actually experience the opposite. I hear so much out in the world. The noise is always saying, don't be perfect, right? So I often see people have mistakes in their writing, and it's almost like I look at it and I'm thinking, did they leave that intentionally because they feel like they're not trying to be perfect? They don't want people to perceive that, because I don't like professionally edit anything I write, but I do edit in the sense that I go back and I look at it and I say, okay, do I want to reformulate sort of what I wrote there or here? And when I'm doing that, I will catch any mistake that I wrote, and sometimes I'm thinking, shoot, do I need to leave a mistake so people don't think I'm trying to be so perfect? They read my stuff and they say, this woman doesn't even ever make a spelling mistake. I don't know if I should even believe what she's talking about. You know, it's the opposite of what you're experiencing.
Well, that makes me feel better. Thank you.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm terrible. I mean, if it wasn't for subject.
We missed what you said, Marilyn. Say it again.
No, I'm just saying, if it wasn't for spell check for me, I don't know where I would be. And
That's
then
right.
it overspell checks because I think it looks right, and then it messes it up when it goes out. So I'm almost to the point where I can't even, I don't even apologize anymore because the machine's more powerful than me.
Well, and I do agree with, I forget who made the comment earlier about, writing something. I do sometimes write something, then print it out and hand write my edits and do some for grammar stuff. Because I do think reading it out loud to yourself is a good one, and looking at it outside of being on in a computer or electronic environment can really sort of help you tweak little nibbly things. So that's a good suggestion as well.
Have you ever heard of the, and I know everybody has because it's an old, way back when thing to do, but to read the last paragraph first and read it from backwards up to the top of it, to look for grammar and sentences that don't make complete sentences and that kind of stuff. When you read the last paragraph first from the last sentence and read it back, you catch more, you don't catch, you're not editing for thought and flow and that kind of thing because you can't. You're looking for complete sentences. Should there be a comma here? Katrina, have you heard that and have you ever used that method?
I have heard of it. I haven't particularly done that for myself. I just make sure I leave in a little bit of space between writing and then publishing something. That seems to take care of that for me, but I absolutely agree with you. Kind of tricking your brain into reading something backwards can make things that you would skip over normally because you're just pattern. It makes them much more obvious.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Marilyn, I'm thinking specifically of you on that. If you did that, I think you're going to feel better about your editing process, where you just read it backwards and you're looking for specific things, not flow, not what it says. You can't tell what it says because you're reading it backwards from end back to the beginning. And then once you do that, then you can read what you've written and look for flow and the right words and that kind of thing. That may or may not help, and I could be totally wrong.
Now, look, you know what we're doing here is great because if people listening, catching, yeah, I do that, or yeah, I've thought of that, or I have that issue, and that's what we're doing. We're just throwing out all these things and having this open discussion because we all have different approaches. Like I said earlier, I like to write how I speak. Somebody else doesn't do that. But that's great because the more we share that we do, the more permission everybody has to do whatever they have to do.
No question.
And for me, it's very, I find it difficult sometimes because I want to express something profound. And I can't always find the actual words to express those thoughts because they're so profound, and when I do find the word, it comes off so easy, or the word is easy, that sometimes it's so profound and the word is easy. Does that match? So it's a constant learning, just like we're doing, constant listening and a constant learning. And I also, so it's 11:34.
It is not.
Yeah, it goes to 11:30, even though we always go maybe a minute or two over. So I want to be respectful of that. And some of us might need to go, and some of our listeners, watchers may need to go. I just want to ask Tracy, somebody has a comment they want to mention, Tracy?
Yes, ma'am. Kelly says, hold on, let me get the eyeball. I'm bad with the eyeball
good.
thing.
We
Kelly
saw
says, Kelly says, I can pose on the keyboard and edit. Oh, wait, that's the wrong one. Kelly says, time is my greatest roadblock. No lack of ideas. Contacts just purely not enough hours in the day. And then David, who has been giving me Wimbledon updates through this thing, thank you, David, says, hi, I'm all in for more hours into the day. And I know David wants to pop off and get to World Cup because he said he'd pop in between. It's a big sports time he's got to listen to. So
I'm so glad that you put up that comment, Tracy. You must have been reading my mind because I saw it and I was like, oh, we really need to talk about that before we close the show. I definitely think if you're running out of time and your ideas flow really easily, just grab something on your phone. Like you said, do the dictation or find a recording device because you can always go back to it later, especially if you're more in the flow with how you speak than how you write. And that will save you time because it's in the moment, you say it, it's done, and then you find time at some point. Yes, you have to work in some time to actually listen to it, but at least you're not feeling like the ideas are going to waste, if that makes sense.
Right.
So, and then it does kind of help to, obviously, carve out at least a little time in your week, figure out how to rearrange something. Something's got to give. If you really want to write, something's got to shift.
That's what I was going to say, Katrina. It's all about what's really important. And if you really want to get some of that stuff written down and share it out in the world, you got to make time for it. It's got to be a priority like everything else that's taking up the time now.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And listening to our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Really paying attention to what we experience in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it in that day that we might want to express and write about. And giving everything, or as many things that we do, giving it attention and respect. And when you do write it down like you're talking about, I call it like a parking lot. You park an idea there, and it gives it respect so that it allows for future ideas to come out, because if we don't respect our ideas, we're not going to give our ideas respect, and we won't have much to write about. We won't give it our self-expression respect. We want to park those things. Every idea we have, we want to park somewhere until we're ready to write about it. So, Kayleana, you've been quiet for a few minutes. Any final words before we close?
Absolutely. I was just thinking I want to get in one final little tidbit for everybody that's listening. There's so many processes and formulas and things out there in the world, but like anything else, including being a mom now for 14 years, the greatest lesson that I have learned is that everybody can have their own formula. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the game, when it comes to writing, because that's what we're talking about, if you have value and ideas that you feel compelled and inspired to share, just do it. Don't get stuck in that there's the right way to be a writer, whether we're talking about blogging, whether we're talking about writing a book, whether we're talking about that you do poetry. In the end, it's got to just be that you get your inspiration out. It's got to come out of your head before it's ever going to serve anybody. And don't get stuck in the excuse and the fear that says, I may not be doing it right. I've got to have that exact formula. If you're going to write a book, you're going to get an editor and you're going to get a program that's going to help you learn some steps. But in the end, I know that I don't parent my babies today like anybody else parents their babies. So you got to trust that God is inspiring you with some sort of message at any moment that you feel that inspiration, and get it on whatever it needs to be, whether that's paper, whether that's your phone dictated, it doesn't matter. And get it out to the world, because somebody's going to benefit from it, but they can only benefit if it's out there, not in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you. Sheila, any final?
Everything that, how do you pronounce your name? Catalina?
Kalyani.
Kalyana. Everything that you just said, ditto. But I would also like to add that I am so appreciative of the comments and being able to pull the comments up. I am a commenter, and I never realized how important that was to the people that, in the film strip. Their feedback is fabulous, so thank you very much for your comments. And for people watching this later, when you comment, we will see them. It really, really helps a lot to have feedback. And I just am so pleased to be here. Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you, Sheila. Tracy?
I learned a lot, and you guys inspired me to get a little bit closer to being over my fear of writing, and it's been a fantastic conversation. All of you writers, there is a lot going on in the comment stream. You can pop in there, and thank you, everybody. This is another great Healthy Listening show. I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Thanks.
Katrina, what about you, honey?
First of all, I'm just excited that this many people want to write. That's exciting to other people that have creative ideas to share. You know, it makes me happy that in the world there is a voice in there that we want to get out, and I'm just excited that everyone is starting to really realize that their way is the right way. There isn't a perfect way. There isn't a specific way. It's really helping them get in tune with who they are. That's why that voice is there. It's really to kind of help you learn about yourself. As much as it is to get something out to the world, it really is a learning tool for you, and it's very important to be aware and listening in that way. And I would absolutely echo that everything else that people on the panel have said. The commenters are great. There's so many ways that, you know, we have our own fears that we have to kind of work past, but there is help out there, and there is a support, so we can do that together. It's not something that's you write alone, but you aren't alone, if that makes sense.
That does make
Yes.
sense.
Yeah.
You know, and I thank you all very much. And I see David said he carries around a recorder and a pad for you know, the opportunity to write on. And I want to say that there's a listener and a watcher for everything. Somebody's going to gravitate to Sheila before they might gravitate to somebody else. But for some reason, she has something to say that somebody is ready to listen to, and somebody's ready to read. So we all have that opportunity to share something with somebody, and there's enough people out here that are listening and want what you specifically have to say. So no matter what, it's whether it's the way you say it, it's the way you write it, it's the way you put it, it's the experience you have that somebody else has an experience so similar that they need to hear it just the way you're going to say it. So there are no reasons why any of us should not be writing and sharing. We all need to, and it's a great opportunity. So I want to thank you all very, very much for being here. Next week we'll be at 11 o'clock again for Skywire, listening about something. And I hope you all come back and want to be back in the green room and sharing. If you have any ideas of what you want us all to discuss, what you want to hear and discuss with us, let me know, because we listen on so many levels to everything. And we just pick little things every week, big things every week that we listen to and we dissect and we learn from and we go with. So just let me know, and I want to see you all back here. So thank you very much. Tracy, you're such a big help there, too. Thank you for keeping everything going.
Yes.
Welcome.
Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye, Marion. Thank you. Bye, everybody.